Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy here, back with another episode of Fixing It Forward, our 2003 Nissan Sentra SER, the pirate car. Today, we're going to be doing something fun. Earlier there have been indications I had a check engine light that was for a cam sensor code. Also there's been some noise while the engine is operating. A lot of signs point to the fact that the timing chain in this engine is worn. And if that's the case, we're intent on replacing it today. Now something I'd like to cover really quick, I have a kit here from Car Part Kings, thanks guys. Car Part Kings provided us also with a water pump. I mean, we're going to be in there anyway. They gave us this timing chain and this to get this job done, and AMSOIL gave us some oil to fill it up when we're finished. But one thing I want to cover real quick is about timing chains themselves. This is the balance chain. This engine actually has two chains on it. There's one for the cam and crank, and then one there's a balance. People say, or often say, that timing chains stretch, and that's not technically true. What happens is you get wear at each one of these pivot points. Each one of these little links will wear, and even if it's only a fraction of a millimeter here, if you translate or multiply that by every link in this chain, it does change the effective length, and a lot of times significantly, and people say the chain has stretched. Technically, it's worn, not stretched. Just want to throw that out there. My plan of attack today is to get the valve cover off, get a look at this chain, and see if I can verify that it is indeed looser than it should be, and if it is, we'll pursue it. It's a little more involved than you think. It's not like a timing belt job. We have to drop the oil pan on this one, which also means we have to drop the exhaust. We're gonna get in kind of deep, and that's one of the reasons why we have an oil change ready. So why don't we get the valve cover off, inspect the chain, see where we're at, go from there. Fix yourself. I really wish that would work sometimes. Looks like some 10mm fasteners hold this cover over the cover that we need to remove. I love these Beta T handles. And as with all of my videos, I will put links in the description to the tools and parts and stuff that I'm using. Also, once again, Car Part Kings. They've been so awesome to us with this vehicle and other Fixing It Forward projects as well. So this one up here was a little shorter. These other two on the outsides were longer, but know that that one up there is shorter. But something I've often said in these large jobs like this is I try to keep all my parts and things together, like so. And it looks like already there's going to be a challenge because we can take the valve cover off, but that's not going to tell us anything about the chain because the chain cover is over here. Have to approach this a little bit differently. I need a moment to think about it. We'll be back. It'll only be a second for you, but for me, it might be a few minutes. I figured one thing out, and you've got to be careful of the washer hoses when you do stuff like this. This is a trick I've done in Hondas in the past, but I got a chance to open the hood just a little bit more, which lets some more light down in here and gives me some more breathing room. It doesn't feel so claustrophobic. Oftentimes when you start big jobs like this, it's common practice to disconnect the negative battery cable. Now the patient is asleep. First going to remove the coil packs. Still using my 10mm. You know, it comes to mind that, well, I'm kind of glad we did that. Because we did find an issue here with some oil getting down into the spark plug well. We're going to have to clean that coil pack up, clean that one up also. So that can eventually cause a misfire and it can cause these coils to go bad. While we're at it, I might as well check the plugs. See what kind of, wow, that's a lot of oil that's in there. That's a lot of oil that's in there. It almost makes me think twice about pulling that plug out because I'm going to fill that whole cylinder up with that oil. And that could put it in a hydrostatic lock situation. Well, they're the original, they're the good plugs, they're the NGK plugs. But I'm saying they've been in there for a bit. It's probably not a bad idea to replace them. I have this. Not ideal, but it's better. One thing about the oil, you know they're not corroded in place. If you wonder why I don't have that little rubber thing down inside my spark plug socket, it's because of days like this. And I've had it for, 20 years. Ew. I'm going to continue on removing the valve cover. This harness needs to come up and out of the way. It's just sort of clipped into the top. A couple of sensors down here that are connected. Nissan connectors can be weird. You have to push in that green thing to unlock it. I'll be able to get this up out of the way so I can get this valve cover off. I suppose that's enough. There's another PCV hose right here in the front. Plastic valve covers make me nervous. I bet they've sold one or two of these. Thank you so much for coming apart. I've got to admit, that hose, rock hard. Still with the trusty 10 millimeter. Sometimes I wish there was an ostrich and my knees bent the other way. Sure would make working on things like this much easier. In fact, I could probably sidle up to the car, get a lot closer. Just sort of slip my legs underneath. I haven't found a different sized one of these yet. Had to open my mouth, didn't I? Somebody got creative. It's funny how whenever you say things, like the opposite becomes true the minute you say it. It's even more fun that, you know, all of you are watching. Remember, Eric the Car Guy falls on his sword so you don't have to. And that's all of them. See if it'll cooperate. All the fasteners are out. Wasn't so much a prying motion as a twisting motion. Like I just got it into place and it twisted. I actually have a lot of leverage that way. Now, definitely we're replacing these seals in the top of the valve cover here. My concern is the real problem lies down inside the seals where these go down in. And this should be pretty close to top dead center. This is number one cylinder and these cam lobes are pointing towards the sides, so I suspect that that's top dead center compression. I'd have to check the mark down below on the crank to make sure, but I think we got to be in this position anyway. While I'm working, there's the chance of dirt and debris getting down inside the engine. So I'm just going to take a couple shop rags, lay them over the top of the engine as I work to help prevent this very thing from occurring. Is it 100%? No. Is it better than nothing? Absolutely. Going to lift it up. Get the oil draining because we're going to need to drop the oil pan. Right, this is what we have. This bottom part of the block looks like the air conditioner is going to have to get disconnected also. That's part of the oil pan there. This is the part we're going to have to drop down because there's another timing chain under this that runs down in this area. So we'll have to remove this part here. But in order to do that, this exhaust has got to come down, and viewers have mentioned that these catalytic converters have had issue with coming apart internally and those bits getting caught up inside the engine. Maybe when we've got this apart, we can get a look up in there and see if we've got any issues. It looks like this is what I'm going to have to do. Since there's an engine mount right here and there's one in the back here. Right now there's an engine mount holding that side and this side. So the front of the engine and this part are both held down by engine mounts. There's 4 engine mounts total, one here and one here. If we drop this down, this will still be supported by the 2 engine mounts that are up there. But we're going to have to disconnect this engine mount over here in order to do our work on the timing chain. It may be necessary to raise the engine slightly in that instance, but I'm going to take this one thing at a time. Let's get the oil draining. I'm going to get some penetrating oil on these exhaust bolts, and I'm going to look to get this guy out of here too. 14 millimeter fastener on the oil pan. While that is draining, I'm gonna see what I can do about this brace here. I'm gonna need access to this area. It's just gonna be a lot easier to get to without a wheel in the way. Now, previously, I had already removed the splash shield from another job. When we're done today, we will be replacing that splash shield, but if you notice a missing splash shield there, it's on purpose, it's intentional. Your spiders can keep those spiders company. Penetrating oil. But everything I'm seeing here says, Eric, it might be a long day. Just saying. Oh, the exhaust is attached too. Oh, nice. I think I'll start with this guy, 14 millimeter. That engine dropped a bit. I got a plan for that. Rather than cluttering up the whole underside of this car with stuff just yet, oil is pretty much done draining. Let me get this oil drain out of the way. If you're on the ground, a floor jack will work for this, but don't put the jack or anything right up against the engine. I use a wood block to protect it, keep it from being harmed. That made it so I could easily remove that bolt. It just moved a little bit. It wasn't a great deal, but it was enough. It's 2 12 millimeters on this exhaust hanger. Two through bolts. They're nuts on this side and bolts on that side for this rear engine mount. These are 17 if I haven't mentioned that yet. Well, this may be some kind of weird, sad irony in that these will not come out. Like why they didn't put these through this way so that you could take the nuts off and then remove the bolts coming out over here. Instead, they put them through this way, and when you try to pull these out, they're gonna hit the exhaust. Not how I'm putting them back in. In order to drop this down, we first need to drop this exhaust. We're gonna have to do it anyway, but it doesn't make it suck any less. Looking at those spring bolts, I don't want to be buying spring bolts today, and I'm pretty sure if I don't heat these up, that's exactly what I'll be doing. Auto repair is always a challenge, and I started doing it out of necessity, and I think many of you are kind of in the same place. But those of you that choose to do it for a profession, I think you find days like this are days where you ask yourself why you did it. Like my gas cart. Works. That traction chair's come in pretty handy. Ow! Piece of rust like flaked off. Nailed me right in the head. You wonder why I wear a hat? Well, that's one reason. It's always good when you win. You might think it took longer to do that. No, it didn't. It'd have taken a lot longer if we'd have broken it and had to drill it out. With the exhaust loose, I should be able to drop it down now. And I can harvest my bolts, sorta. Fine, be that way. I'll just get the hammer. I'm putting these back in the other way. I hate tripping over my air hose, but the pneumatic tools honestly work way better than the electric tools. Electric tools are nice if you don't have a compressor, you're working home on your own, but a compressor with decent air pressure, oh, nothing like it. The ones in the front appear to be shorter than the ones in the back. So shorter ones go in the front, longer ones go in the back. These are 17, by the way. That opens stuff up considerably, and I now see that I absolutely had to do that because this oil pan comes all the way over here, has fasteners that attach to the bell housing of the transmission. Also, looks like that rear engine mount has an attachment. I need to remove this whole mount. There's a fastener here. There's one going on the oil pan right here, which is my biggest issue. So I'm not going to be able to remove the oil pan without getting this out of the way. Well, let's get started getting this mount off. There's also 2 more fasteners that go through in this direction over on this side. There appears to be one up here and one down here. 14 millimeter. And yes, that engine is moving around now. Ooh. The rest we'll do with the impact. Well, actually, we got to gear wrench one of them out. And the last one, the whole reason they're doing this in the first place. Engine mount. I don't know. I do now. You can't mix these up because one has a bigger shank than the other. So you really can't mix these up. And this one goes down here. Now what? Here we are at the front of the engine. Now, I'm going to have to remove this AC compressor, which is fastened to the oil pan in order to get the oil pan down. I'm also going to need to remove this drive belt anyway, because we need to get to all this other stuff and remove some other stuff on the front of the engine. What better time to get started than now? Tensioner's right here. It's got a 14 millimeter fastener on it. Push it this way. The belt comes right off. I wish I could say the same for the wrench. Now that I'm undone, I'm just gonna unthread this belt. Taking a look at this belt, it really looks, I mean, on the outside, it looks like it's a little older, but it really looks fairly new. And this car had a relatively new looking alternator on it. I'm saying it's probably good. So I'm just gonna reuse this belt. I don't see any need to replace it. Gonna have to get the AC compressor off of here. And there are 4, what looks like 12 millimeter fasteners. Hold it top and bottom. We've got one up here, one next door, 2 down here. And we don't need to disconnect or open up the AC system at all. We're just removing it and pushing it over to the side is all we're doing. We're not getting too fancy. We don't want to open up the AC system. That's a whole other bit of work we would have to do. I'm be a bit cautious here because the cooling fan is right up next to there. And if I keep loosening it, I'm gonna basically make it so I won't be able to take my ratchet off. So I'm gonna go grab a gear wrench to get that top one so I don't get stuck. I'm gonna leave the bolts in place. They're kind of long. If I don't have to take them out, I'm not gonna. This connector here might get damaged when this drops down. I'm trying to be a little proactive and prevent that and either disconnect it, which I'm having trouble figuring out, or get it off of its mount. So that I'm not hanging it by the hoses. I don't think it matters that much, but I do want it a little more out of the way than it's being right now. There's a dipstick tube going down into the oil pan here, and I can just see the AC compressor line coming down on a bracket that connects to that dipstick tube. I'm gonna remove that fastener and see if I can remove the dipstick tube from the oil pan, because that is, I believe, to be our last hurdle before we actually take that off of there. This one's a 10 millimeter. All right, I totally lied, it's a 12. I'm hoping this just pulls up out of here. Although I have had luck putting a little bit of penetrating oil down in where it goes into the oil pan. Maybe a better plan. It's funny how the things that seem simple are the things that jam you up the most. Oh, looks like the wire came off. You know, I like using my T-handle. These are 10s back here for this part of the cover. Those other ones look like 14s, and they are. Four of them to be precise. So make short work of them. Looks like the top ones are a little bit longer than the lower ones, which are the dark colored fasteners. Something of a dilemma that I'm looking at here. I'm down to actually removing this part of the oil pan. I don't see any fasteners up front here that's holding anything here on. There's fasteners that go all the way up to this piece back here, but that's as far as they go. I don't see anything holding that on. I hope there's nothing going down from up top. That would be really disappointing. I don't feel anything up there. I'm just gonna take all the fasteners in the back off and then try to pull this down, and if I can't, I'm gonna pull this cover off, see what's underneath. I'm guessing that there's probably a couple of fasteners up under this lower sub pan, if you wanna call it that. But these other ones that hold the back part of the pan up are 12 millimeter. Longer ones were in the back. And I see another one right here. If it's coming off, I don't think it is. Still sounds like it's on there good. Look like all 10s to me. Maybe they're all the same size. This is going to cause some drippage. I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot of oil, because whenever you change your oil, you think you get it all out of there, but there's still about a quart sitting in the pan many times. And as I suspected, there's stuff we need to undo. Bunch of 12 millimeters. This guy, this guy, this guy, this. And then there's one buried way up in there. Feels like there's still a fastener holding it. Maybe it's just a matter of prying in the right spot. It's totally separating. It's just, I think, glued really tightly in the back. Although, I see two more 10s. Yep, that was our ticket. Yeah, there's a dowel right there, right in here. There it is. It's weird calling that an oil pan because it's got a giant hole in the bottom of it. I guess it's something to work with. There's lower timing chain here. The whole reason why we did this is right there. Crank pulley needs to come off. It could be easy, it could be hard, but I also need to make sure that it's in the correct location and make sure that I'm in time when I take everything apart. At least that's what I hope. I'm not sure if there's external timing marks on the outside here. I couldn't really see them from up top. The engine mount was in the way. But these normally are keyed and can only go on one way. And usually the keyway, when it's on the way it's supposed to be, is pointed at 12 o'clock. So I think, if nothing else, I'm close. Now, I don't know if this will require a puller or not. Sometimes just 2 pry bars and being friendly, I take the bolt, put it on there like that, so that it doesn't come flying off in my face. But I've had success with the 2 pry bar method. You just got to be careful because you don't want to damage it or the aluminum case behind it. And you just walk it, just work it back and forth. And this one's coming off really easy. Grateful for that. Ding. So just for my own curiosity, is there a timing mark on this? I don't see one. But the links for the timing chain they're color coded for where they're supposed to go. So I'm not overly concerned about where the timing goes, because if you put the links in the correct location, it should be in time. You know, that's the cool thing about chains. Usually there are different colored links that say put it here, or it has like little dots on them or something. These have colored links, which you'll see in a minute, but we don't need this anymore, so I'm gonna set it aside. I wanna remove the tensioner. Ooh. Might have to see if my parts guy has one of these, or if nothing else, a bearing. Looks like 2 12s. I'm also going to be replacing the water pump. Figure I'm in here, might as well taking this tensioner off before I remove the water pump. I'd rather be cautious than not. Hopefully this is all it takes, is just these 2 fasteners. Yep. Tensioner. Yeah. I would love to, if nothing else, replace that bearing. There is a nut on the bottom of the engine mount here that I'm hitting with some penetrating oil now that I want to take off before I get it up in the air, because I will have to remove that mount while I have it up in the air. I also think there's a couple of fasteners under here that I might get, and then also the lower fastener for the power steering. I want to see if I can get the power steering all the way off, because it looks like that'll interfere with the cover. Oh, that's unfortunate. Don't want to have to deal with that when we're all back on the ground. But I think once I get the oil pan back on and everything's sealed up, then I'll remove the water pump, replace that, and finish assembling everything. But for now, let's see if we can get this power steering pump away from the timing cover. There's 114 here. Now if I can just get it to pivot up and away, great. If not, I gotta remove it. I have to look back there to see how it's attached. Okay, there's a 14 millimeter fastener up above this power steering pump. And I am working at right now. It's the other one holding the pump into place. I can't see it. I just know it's above the power steering pump, and the power steering pump is coming loose. So I'm sorry I can't give you a more detailed view of what's going on here. I'm standing here and I can't see it. It's a through bolt. It goes through up top. And then there's a smaller one underneath that attaches it to the bottom, but it's disconnected now. I just need to remove this electrical connection because I don't want it damaged. this gets my power steering out of the way. Might be a job for another bungee cord. Well, no, that's out of the way. There's 14 here, 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 here. There's a 10 up here, and a 10 there, a 10 here. There's definitely a 10 here, one up above here. I'm gonna remove all of those now, everything underneath. So all I have left is what's up top. So that way I just lower it down once instead of this whole thing where I do this dance in between. I'm gonna start with the 14s and just get those disconnected, and then I'll do the 10s. Let's see if I got a 1/4" 14 to get up in there. I'd ratchet myself into a corner if I kept going there. You know what? That looks like the bracket for the engine mount. I may be able to access it better from up there. So I'll leave these 2 longer fasteners in so I can get to those up top, but these shorter ones I'm gonna try and get from down here. That's starting to spread pretty good, so I'm gonna tighten that one that's in the back there a little bit more. It's got at least 1 fastener holding it into place. And that way, I can get these lower ones out of the way. At least the upper ones will be loose. So hopefully it won't fight me too much from the top when I get there. Get these lower cover fasteners. Ha, I just had me an idea. That one was longer, but you can sort of see where the longer ones go because they stick out more. Short, long, short, long. Looks like the 2 lower, longer ones. This one and this one are the same length. Now we've got to change our strategy up so that we can support underneath this. Now, I'm going to take a wood block and put it under this assembly, and that might make you a little bit nervous, but don't be, because it's wood. In a battle between wood and metal, metal will win. And I'm only going to be supporting. I'm not going to be lifting so much. So my thought is, when it's on the ground, I'm going to have this on the ground. Then I'm going to come in right there with it. So that comes in the contact side. I may not be able to show this to you when it's on the ground, but this is where I'm hoping to come in to support it. I'd say that was a pretty good guess on my part. I'm kind of proud of it. Obviously, I don't want to bend the pickup or anything. Meanwhile, up top, we're kind of kicking its butt, I think. I do need to get this overflow out of the way. Looks like a 10 millimeter. We'll get that to go away. All kinds of room. Knowing that I'm gonna be removing the alternator to access the water pump anyway, I kind of just want to just take it off and get it out of the way. Battery's already disconnected, if you remember. I had to go with the 13. Nissan doesn't use the 13 on the whole thing. If one fastener gets me to a place where I can totally get this harness out of my way, I'm on it. So one fastener down in here, 14 I think it is. I win. Really? There we go. Another 14. Yeah, we'll just know that goes there. Since this bottom bracket is bolted to the water pump, I guess we kind of had to do that. I'm gonna reposition the bungee for my AC compressor. Kind of don't like the way it's hanging. That seems better. Because this hose was laying right on top of the top cover. I didn't want that. And it will allow me to remove this fastener because I didn't want, this is all connected to the evaporator back on the firewall. I move this stuff around too much and I could cause an AC leak back there. Oh, just break then. It's not a critical fastener, but oh well. I'm glad I have that held up like that because if not, it would have just dropped right down. Now we need to remove this engine mount, which has this harness attached to it. Yay. Sometimes penetrating oil on rusty ones. Now I should be able to take this out of there. The engine is supported underneath by that wood block. Should be okay. Emphasize the word should. Yeah, they're 14s. There's two, well there's three actually. There's one on either side and one down in the back there. This is the part where I pray that it came loose. It did. Yeah, cool. Our engine's totally supported. Didn't come loose. Or it didn't drop down, I should say. Really? There it is, the engine mount. There's a connector to this solenoid right here. I'm going to remove. A couple of grounds right up top here. They're 10 millimeter. And then we have all the other fasteners down there. In fact, I'm going to raise the engine a little bit by lowering the car. Just a little. Ooh. But yeah, this gives me a better angle. You could do the same thing with a floor jack and a block of wood with what I'm doing under there. This is just easier with the lift. There's this bracket which we loosen the lower fasteners, or we loosen the fasteners on when we're underneath. That comes off first, and then we'll be able to get to the timing chain cover. Gear wrench to do the rear 14 back here. Kind of glad I loosened them while we were underneath, and it makes things a little easier now. Since we took out the two lower fasteners, all we got to do is pretty much loosen those top two, and we're there. And since I kept these handy, I'm just going to insert them in there now so I don't forget where they go. There are two fasteners here and then some other ones back over here, and then there's really just a couple. 1, 2, 3 in the front, and I think that's the end of our fasteners. All 10 millimeter. This top one in the back is a bit longer. One below it was not. Another short one. So far there's only been one long one. Also seems to be another short one about the same length as the others. This one's a little different. It has kind of a lock washer kind of thing. I know, right? I just won't quit using it. I just really like using them. That one's a bit longer in the front there, on the bottom. Another one with a washer in the front. I'm just sort of putting them in order. Another one without a washer. It's just kind of a regular shape. And I'm just laying them out in the order that they came out. All right, I'm gonna feel around down here just to see if there's any other stuff. I'm not feeling anything. This cover coming off, I hope. There's a little ear right here I'm gonna hit with a hammer. Ah, right in the middle. Right here. That one also has something of a washer with that there. If there's any other hidden ones under here at all. Huh. There's two parts to this cover, it looks like. Get a first look at our chain. It seems tight on that side. Seems tight on that side too. Tensioner looks fully extended though. See how the shiny part of that tensioner, there's like a whole lot of it sticking out there? I'm saying that's probably worn. And we can actually lay it up against our new timing chain and sort of measure it out. I think we're lined up where we're supposed to be, but you see there's a different color link right here already. It should be up here. And we can continue to rotate the engine around until those marks line up, and we can make absolutely sure, because I believe there's one mark here, but then there's another, see that groove in the top of this? It's supposed to line up with another one there, and then there's another one that lines up down below with the crank. We somehow have to get this other cover off of here. It's like we still have some more disconnecting to do. There are fasteners 10 millimeters here, 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 and then down in here that need to be removed. Once those are removed, I'm hoping this inner cover, we'll call it, comes off. When? Two. So far they look to be the same size. Also the same size. And finally, also the same size. I've noticed that all these fasteners are coated with a little bit of sealant. Ah, found another one. You can sort of tell by the sound. It's hollow if it's still attached. It's got just a different sound to it. These two are here are longer. Found another fastener, but when you're doing this, you got to be careful not to go to town on it, because if you do, and you end up breaking something, like see now I'm loose. I can actually see that it's moving a little bit, but if it's not moving and it's got like that dead sound when you hit it, there's probably another fastener somewhere. So give a look around before you start prying and hitting. It's one of those kind of things where you just gotta work careful. I'm just feeling around down here to make sure that all the fasteners are out. And they are. It's just, I believe there's some dowels that are down here. It'd be nice if they left me like some ears, something that I could get purchase on when I'm doing this prying. I think what I'll do now is just go underneath, grab a piece of cardboard, lay on that, and pry from underneath on the lower part, because trying to get this loose from up here feels risky. Ah, looks like that oil pickup is attached. Yeah, it is attached some. There's a 10 millimeter. Actually, there's a 12 further up. Of course. Oh, right in my face. Nice. There we are. Yeah, I'm gonna set this over on the bench. And then, as you can see, this thing is ready to come off. Now the tricky part. I need to get this out of here. And I've sort of been wondering if up or down is going to be my way. I think I might have to raise it up a little bit because I'm getting up against the firewall there. Or against that, I should say, that inner frame rail. Yeah. Looks like that's the way to go. Down. Now, this is a little plastic guy right here. It's in my kit, but it hooks on just like that. Watch out for that, because that kept coming loose as I was taking this off. But there it is. This is a timing cover. You saw how much work it was to get to this point where we're finally to the timing chain. Oil pan, AC, all that stuff. Now, these colored links are supposed to line up in such a way to where they line up with the marks on these sprockets. But the chain is hunting, and what that means is the whole system is designed to where the same link doesn't come up in the same place each and every revolution. In order to ensure that I have this timing chain on like in absolute correct manner, as I said, I don't want to have to come back here after going through all this effort. I'm going to make sure that those marks line up before I take the old chain off, just to be on the safe side, and to show you that, you know, it is possible, and it may take several revolutions before you actually get to the point where all the colored links are lined up in their happy places. So it may take a few times, but we'll spin it around until we get it to a nice place. To do that, I'm taking the crank bolt and putting it back in. Remember, our spark plugs are already removed, so it's going to be very easy to turn the engine over, and I suggest you remove the spark plugs when you do this, or else you'll be fighting it the whole time, be creating compression. I've got a long extension, and I've got my ratchet. It take several times for all the special sprockets and teeth and everything to line up. Oh, it's so close. One link off right here. Like I said, this may take several times. That's it. Nailed it. There's that mark that lines up with that. There's this mark that lines up with this one, this groove. Now that one down below lines up with the crank. There's a spacer. Got to come out. I'm gonna take the guides and everything off, and the chain's gonna go slack. But you can more clearly see, now that that's out of the way, the dot that lines up with the special link. In some ways, lining up chains can be easier when the links are marked like this, when they're clearly marked. You know for sure you're in time if all the links line up the way they are here. I'm sure I've got the timing and everything lined up. There are two 10mm fasteners holding on the tensioner back here that I'm going to remove to take tension off of this so I can remove the outer chain so I can get to the balance chain that's down below. But I'm told any 4-cylinder that is above 2 liters needs some kind of balance assembly, or else 4-cylinders fire every 180 degrees. So they're choppy by nature, whereas like V6s every 60 degrees, 5-cylinders every 120, 8-cylinders every 45. 4-cylinders, inherently choppy things. So if they get above 2 liters in displacement, it's normally when they come in and add some kind of balancing assembly, which is what they have here. It's totally okay, because guess what? We got a whole new one. We do need those fasteners though. It got all jack-sorbed. And all this is a spring inside a plunger like this. And it starts out in there. That's what I meant when it was overextended. It's like out to here. It starts out like back here. So it's had to move out a substantial amount in order to accommodate the wear in this chain. The guides are number 6 Allens. I've actually seen the plastic on these just fall right out and cause real issues. These look pretty good. So again, the guide looks good. And there we are. Our old chain. Whoa kids, I gotta cut you off there. Do you realize you've been watching this timing chain replacement on this 2003 Nissan Sentra 2.5 liter engine for almost an hour? Well, you have. And this is right about at the halfway point. In the next episode, we're gonna put it all back together. Anyway, I wanna give a special shout out and thank you to AMSOIL, also Car Part Kings, and especially you, the viewers, for donating to Fixing It Forward and making this whole thing possible. We're gonna get this car back together. It's gonna be awesome. I'll put a link in the description to part 2 when it becomes available, or I'll also put a link in the description to the full extended version of this video that's available to premium members on my website. Link in the description for more information on that. If you have automotive questions, I'm going to ask you to head over to EricTheCarGuy.com. There's resources there to help you with those automotive issues. If you wish to connect with me socially, Google+, Facebook, Twitter, also Instagram. Close each of my videos. Be safe, have fun, stay dirty. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.